Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We are live. Today is Sunday, February 23rd, 2020. Wow, the month. I mean, I realize it's a short month, but this one's seemed shorter than usual. I just realized how much work I have to do because next weekend I'm in New York City having a debate discussion with Dinesh D'Souza. So, yeah, I won't be around next week, but I'm here this week. I'm Matt Dillahunty, hosting the Atheist Experience today with my very good friend, Dr. Darrel Ray.
Good to be back here with you, Matt.
We've decided we're going to do something new.
We are. Okay.
Well, in honor of you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As a matter of fact, when I get these printed up, I think it should be like the Dr. Darrel Ray Atheist Experience punch card. And so whenever somebody comes on and co-hosts the show, we have a punch card and we'll have like 10 slots and we'll, just like when you're trying to get free ice cream.
Right.
Because you're up to like 6 or 7 or 18 million or something now.
No. 6 or 7.
Once you get to 10, we'll figure out some special prize.
At least ice cream, please.
I'll get you ice cream. You want ice cream today? We can stop before we head back
ice cream today.
Ice cream, yummy. How are you?
I'm doing super. Really enjoying being down here.
Well, we love it when you come down to visit. You did Talk Heathen earlier.
Yep.
And doing
Secular Sexuality on Thursday.
Yeah. Was that kinky enough for you?
No, we didn't really get into the kink. I want to do that someday, but I don't know if they're ready for me yet or not.
Believe it or not, they've had me on that show, and I was sitting there going, I don't know what I have to offer to like secular sexuality, but I'll chime in.
Right. But,
it's great. We've moved to this point where the Atheist Community of Austin, by the way, we're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of religion and government. We are broadcasting live from the Free Thought Library at 1507 West Koenig Lane. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come out and join us. The library is open every day from 11 to 9 with some potential exceptions, but there's a phone number you can call if you get here and there's nobody here. And we've now sorted that out so that the voicemails related to that phone number are being addressed and taken care of. We have a studio audience on the other side, and we'll be having dinner after the show. I don't know for sure what we're having. I'm sure somebody will tell me at some point.
Steak and lobster?
I kind of doubt that.
Darn.
But if you want steak and lobster, I will take you for steak and lobster after the show.
Okay.
When you get your 10th one punched.
Darn.
But anyway, there's a bunch of stuff going on in the near future. I know my schedule is hectic, but we are coming up in March. We've got Atheist Day. Then when we move out towards like June, we've got Faithless Forum is going to be here in Austin. And in between then, there's a number of debates. I did a debate Friday night, which will be posted on my Patreon tonight, actually. When I get done here, I'm going to go do some actual work.
Good.
Because this is fun. This show is my therapy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
This is my addiction and my therapy.
And you don't even have to pay me to do therapy for you.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in just a minute. But just as a reminder, we have a couple of Darrel's books here. The first one, which was my introduction to Dr. Darrel Ray, is The God Virus, How Religion Infects Our Lives and Culture. And you want to give like a quickie synopsis for those who aren't familiar?
The quickie synopsis is don't get infected with religion.
Boom.
It's a parasite, and it'll take over your life if you're not careful.
And the second book, which actually spawned the Secular Sexuality Show, among other things, is Sex and God, How Religion Distorts Sexuality. And for years, I mean, we've known each other for more than...
Going clear back to like 2010 at least.
Yeah, it's more than a decade at this point. Well, what year did The God Virus come out?
2009.
Okay, because we met right around then.
Within a month or two after that came out, I was on the show, for the first time.
This one, though, this is fun. So we were actually talking before the show about a number of things, and there's a few things we want to get into before we start taking callers. Specifically, Darrel's not only written a couple books, but started Recovering from Religion Organization, the Secular Therapist Project, and I remember at Apostacon, probably 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. You and I were sitting there, and I think Marlene Winnell was there. And,
right. Mm-hmm.
You were talking about the very beginnings of starting, hey, here's what we're going to do, and we're so excited and everything else. And now Recovering from Religion has grown. It's probably the single most valuable resource that we recommend on a regular basis because people are calling in, and you guys have set up a way for them to have a hotline to call into people,
Right.
Online discussions,
Chat line.
counselors, and moving on to the psychotherapist project for people who have issues that go beyond just, hey, I need somebody to talk to,
Right.
Where they're going to get good science-based treatment.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's grown massively. We have almost 19,000 registered clients on the Psychotherapy Project and 422 certified, registered, vetted therapists on the Secular Therapy Project side. And we have about 118 volunteers.
And you've got a new...
For Recovery from Religion alone.
You just announced a new executive director for Psychotherapist Project?
Yes, Dr. Eric Sprankle.
Right.
You may see him on Twitter. He's got a pretty big Twitter presence, but he's our new director. And we've expanded the Psychotherapy Project. We literally doubled the size of the leadership team because we're going to be doing a couple things, and this is really interesting stuff. First, we got a new director for international outreach. And the second is we got a new director for academic outreach. And the cool thing about the academic outreach is right now there's a hell of a lot of religious schools graduating therapists with religious ideas about LGBTQ, for example. And we're going to be fucking challenging these people. We are not going to let therapists get graduated and get licensed. We're going to start challenging states for licensing people who are getting graduated from places like Pat Robertson's University.
Yeah.
You can go there and get a year of Pat Robertson theologies that says God sends hurricanes to Orlando for the gays. And that is wrong. People should not be subjected to that. And also, conversion therapy. There are states where that's not illegal, and therapists can actually refer to that. And it's unethical as hell.
I'm pretty much of the opinion that you shouldn't be able to become a licensed therapist, counselor, psychologist, etc., unless you also have some grounding in science-based therapy and particularly training in how to deal with secular patients, because you're going to find a lot of counselors who don't seem to know much else besides, well, how's your spiritual life? How is your have you talked to your preacher? Have you talked to your priest? Have you talked to your mom or your rabbi? And because it's not even necessarily that these individuals are extremely religious or proselytizing or anything else. It's become so much a part of our culture.
It is, right.
Oh, well, spirituality is a component of the human experience, so we need to address that in order to address the whole person.
Right.
And yet there are people
who when I hear that, I say, oh, you mean superstition is a part of your worldview and your model of reality?
I mean, if you went into a therapist and they ask you, well, I realize that you're going through a lot right now. Did you happen to break a mirror in the last couple of years? You would walk out. And yet we allow the other stuff. And it's not so much that sort of thing necessarily shouldn't be allowed, although I have my views on it. It's just if we fail to address secular people, the people who are not superstitious, who don't believe in the supernatural, and we just try to shovel, more religion or woo on them, I don't know how we can do that treatment.
You can't. If you never challenge the ideas that got the person to the problem in the first place, then you're never going to help them get out of the problem.
Well, speaking of the thing that might get them to the problem in the first place, let's talk a little bit about religious trauma syndrome.
Okay. Yeah. So what I want to try to get out to the public at this point in time, part of the reason I'm on here, is talk about how does religion cause trauma, and I'm not talking about your run-of-the-mill mainstream Episcopalians or Quakers or whatever. I mean, I'm talking about the main body of evangelicals, for example, or Islamic religions, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons. Those kinds of religions are incredibly restrictive, and as a result, they put ideas into people's heads that ultimately cause them problems in life, which then are explained by, well, that's the devil talking to you, or other things. And I'm here to say that religion causes traumatic experiences in children primarily. And when it does that, adults grow out of those children and become victims of a trauma that we now are calling religious trauma. Now, there's another term that I want to distinguish here today, and that's religious trauma syndrome. That's a little different. But to do that, I want to go back and just say, we all agree that there is such a thing as PTSD.
Right.
Nobody disagrees with that. But we used to disagree with it. Years ago, we called it shell shock, or we called it cowardice, or we called it battle fatigue in the war side of it. And we didn't recognize that it was a real neurological issue. And we said the same thing for years to women about rape trauma, that, well, it's all in your head. You should get over it, kind of bullshit. Well, the same thing has happened with religion. War and rape, we now understand, cause real neurological changes in people. We also need to acknowledge religion does the same thing. And unfortunately, war and sexual trauma can be wrapped up into religion, of course, for sure. So that's what that's kind of been my passion of recent. Right? And as a result of that, can I mention the conference that's coming up? Is this the time to do it? As a result of that, Dr. Marlene Winnell came out with a term about 10 years ago called religious trauma syndrome. And recently we decided this is a damn good idea to start talking about this out loud. And a woman, Janice Selby, a therapist up in Vancouver, has decided she's going to put on a conference on religious trauma.
Right.
And Secular Therapy Project is going to be one of the two main sponsors. Dr. Winnell's Journey Free organization and our organization, Secular Therapy Project, we are going to be talking out loud at the conference for 2 days about this. And our goal is to get this on the map. We know there's PTSD. What nobody wants to talk about is how does a religion screw up people's lives?
Yeah.
And we know this. You and I are both atheists. We see how much damage religion does. But the new thing, or the thing I think is unique, is we now have a label for it. Mm. And we've probably seen this. I saw this 30 years ago in my practice. I didn't know how to label it. Well, now I know how to label it. I know that when somebody comes to me complaining about fear of hell, I can't go to sleep at night because I wake up with fear of hell, I know that's probably religious trauma. I would not have called that name 20 years ago. But now I've got a name for it. As we know, if we can name something, then we can start doing something about it, or at least working on it. And that's why we're having the conference. And by the way, but whether we have a conference or not, I want people to start thinking in terms of religious trauma. Have you been affected by religion, and has it traumatized you in your sexuality, and your ability to have relationships with other people, your ability to sleep at night, your ability to have a social relationship? I mean, when you leave religion, that's when you're most likely to experience religious trauma, because your family will cut you off, your friends will cut you off, you might lose your job. I mean, there's a lot of things. You might have night terrors based on fear of hell. All those things can happen to somebody. And generally speaking, what we're calling religious trauma happens at the point you leave a religion. You may have been traumatized within the religion, but the religion doesn't let you know that. It's God. You need to pray hard to God, or it's Satan doing this to you. But the minute you step out of that bubble, that's when you have to deal with the real trauma that religion did to you, probably since childhood.
Yeah, it's probably one of the reasons, I was mentioning before the show, I mean, I don't suffer from PTSD or any kind of severe effects that I would associate with religious trauma. As a matter of fact, at the time that I found my way out of religion, it was far more freeing. It felt kind of liberating. But it's undeniable that my religious upbringing and the teachings that I was exposed to have had an impact on my life, and in many ways have had a negative impact on my life. Maybe mine isn't as severe as other people's. I don't know whether I would qualify as religious trauma or not, but the fact that there are things in my life which have been detrimentally impacted by religious teachings and the culture that you grow up in, it just means that I'm probably one of the luckier ones.
You are, right.
And you mentioned kind of an informal survey that you had recently done.
Yeah, we did a survey of all of our therapists in the Secular Therapy Project, and not everybody responded. But what we did get gave us some interesting information. What we asked them was, considering all of your client base, not just the ones that come through us, all of your client base, how many people come in with complaints related to religious abuse, like being beaten for having been caught masturbating, or being grounded because you didn't learn your your Bible verses, or being shamed for your body, or being gay, or there's any number of things. And we listed it before. And we asked what percentage of your clients come in with those. We call them adverse childhood experiences related to religion.
Right.
Adverse childhood experiences related to religion. 36% of the clients coming in to the people that responded, 36% have those complaints.
Yeah.
That's a third of all the people that walk into any of our therapists' offices. That's a lot of people. Remember, we got 18,000, almost 19,000 clients. If you divide that by roughly a third, you've got 6,000 people with some kind of trauma related to religion.
And no matter what this is a survey, and not everybody responded and everything else. There are people out there who are going to be good at statistics and stuff, and they're going to say, "Oh, well, you're only surveying people who came in for counseling."
Yeah,
you're right. And the thing is, that doesn't mean that the number's inaccurate, or doesn't tell you which direction it's inaccurate, because how many other people have suffered for a long time because of religious trauma and don't actually come in for counseling.
Right.
Because religions, of the many things that religions have done that are gross disservice to people, setting up a scenario under which you are responsible for you and your thoughts, and psychology and counseling and these things. You don't need that. What you need is God, and you need Jesus. And they keep people mired in this stuff to where they're not going to actually seek out help and counseling.
Absolutely. I think it's probably an undercount, but I do want to understand. I'm not claiming this is scientific. It wasn't, but it is an interesting finding, and it probably is definitely an undercount. Yeah. As I think you're pointing out, there's a lot of people out there walking around with these problems, and they don't identify them as psychological. They identify them as spiritual.
Yeah,
it's because I haven't prayed to God hard enough, and I can't have a good relationship with my partner because I haven't prayed to God hard enough. My marriage is falling apart. I need to pray harder. Well, no, your marriage is probably falling apart because you've got some crazy ideas about what relationships should be. Males should be over females, or you shouldn't have sex before marriage, or whatever. There's all sorts of crazy ideas. So,
are you saying males shouldn't be over females?
Well, if the female wants top or bottom, I don't care.
Welcome to the next edition of Secular Sexuality. Top and bottom.
Topping. Don't be topping me, though. I don't need topping.
It's a great thing. So by the way, if you want to know just how great of a person Darrel is, last Saturday when I was in Tulsa.
Oh yeah.
I was sitting there at the after event dinner, and a woman was asking me questions about people in the movement, and she asked what I thought of Darrel, and I was like, I love Darrel. He's one of my best friends. And she had kind of a negative experience with the Secular Therapist Project because she had gone to the website and evidently didn't use it correctly and didn't get a response. And I was like, okay, well, let's, I don't want to get, Darrel's going to be at my house next Sunday. He's going to be on the show. I don't want to forget. So I just picked up the phone and called him. And you were at a party with a bunch of Satanists.
Yeah, I was at a Satanic Temple party, yeah.
And so he stopped his activity. I don't know what was going on there, but he paused that.
We had our clothes on.
To talk to this woman and sorted out the whole issue.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I love people who have an interest in getting shit done.
Oh, yeah.
And, definitely we should all be thankful to you and for all of the people that you put together who do such amazing work with Recovering from Religion, the Secular Therapist Project. But I value the fact that I can just pick up the phone and say, hey, there's somebody here who's having a problem, and you are Johnny on the spot to try and get it fixed.
Glad I could help her. I want her to get the help she needs.
Yeah. And so on that note, before we start taking calls, as a reminder, you can go ahead and give them the websites, and we have pamphlets. We can't hand you the pamphlets through the screen. We are not yet at Willy Wonka vision level technology. But how do they get in touch with Recovering from Religion, with Secular Therapist Project?
Yeah. Go to recoveringfromreligion.org, and there's a massive amount of resources you can use to help. You can hit the chat button and chat with one of our live human beings. We don't have any bots at Recovering from Religion, and we take a lot of pride in having real human beings. We have human beings that will take your call or take your chat from Germany, from Australia, you name it. We can
Should
talk
I be lip syncing right now?
About anybody.
It's like they cut into me while you were talking. I was like, oh, keep going, Darrel. I'll do it.
And you can go to Psychotherapy Project. Be sure you register as a client and then search. It's kind of like Match.com or a dating site. You don't contact the dating site and say, find me a date. You contact the dating site and you create a profile and then you search for a date. And that's kind of how Psychotherapy Project works. You can find a darn good therapist who's well-trained and uses evidence-based therapy. You don't worry about them sending you back to Jesus or thinking you need a better spiritual life or going back to church or any of that kind of stuff if you contact somebody through the Psychotherapy Project. Psychotherapy.org.
All right. Have you've had a chance to look over the callers who are waiting to speak to you?
Right.
Who you want to go to?
Well, some of them have changed since I last looked. Mary's got a fear of hell thing there. I'm
Sure.
always happy to talk about.
Mary in Minnesota, you are on with Dr. Darrel Ray and Matt Dillahunty. How are you?
Well, hello. This is Matt Dillahunty. I just want to say one thing to Matt Dillahunty before I start is I used to think you were an asshole, and now I think you're too easy on everybody.
And I think both might be true.
I'm yelling at you going, hang up on this jackass half the time now. But anyway.
Welcome to the dark side.
Yeah. I actually don't. I'm not the one with the fear of hell. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I was diagnosed officially on Christmas Eve. And so my doctors say that I have 4 to 6 months, but I am doing treatment, so we could possibly double that, maybe even 2 years. So 1 to 2 years, hopefully. And my family, my boyfriend and my kids, the people that surround me they don't care about me being an atheist, and everybody kind of just does their own thing here. But I grew up in a very fundamentalist family, and there's at least 3 of my siblings that I would say listening. I listen to Talk Heathen too, and I heard you earlier talking about things, and I would say there's at least 3 of my siblings that like severe religious trauma syndrome. 2 of which, one of which it has been in and out of a mental hospital, and it's just all this religious crap that is holding him down. So here I am, I'm dying, and I'm not willing to compromise and say, I believe in Jesus just to make them feel better. But I also, I love my siblings and I don't want to hurt them, but it's just so I can't even really have a conversation with them. Well, one of my brothers said to my other sister that, aren't you worried for her soul? And, we need to pray for her and all this. Because when I first got sick, I called my brother and I told him and I said, I want you to tell everybody in the family, if they want to pray for me, that's fine. But I'm not participating in any prayer. There's going to be no laying on of hands, because we're talking speaking in tongues, slain in the spirit.
Sure.
Oh, wow. Yeah, right.
Pentecostal evangel.
Right.
So I'm kind of in a weird spot. I can control who comes to see me or who I talk to or whatever. But, I don't want to shut them out. But at the same time, I want them to respect me, and I kind of want to try to get them help through the recovering from religion thing. But they don't maybe want to recover from religion.
No, they're not.
And I think when I die, it's going to be really rough on my one brother especially. I think it's going to be really rough for him.
Right.
Mary,
let me throw some ideas out here a bit. Have you actually had a one-on heart talk with these folks, the one-on-one?
Not with all of my siblings, but with my brother, the one that's struggling the most right now. I have talked to him one-on-one right up until I was getting sick. After we knew it was pancreatic cancer, him and one of my sisters came to see me right away on New Year's Eve. To visit. So he saw me and everything, and he will occasionally send me like a little text or something. He posts a lot of really crazy religious stuff.
Right. Let me.
Even religious people think he's crazy. You know what I mean?
Well, look at it a little from another angle. First of all, I want to say kudos to you for how you're handling this.
Yes.
It sounds.
Well, thank you.
That's pretty devastating news. I appreciate your attitude. I might, just as an aside, say you might want to. You're going through the same thing another friend of mine's going through, David Warnock,
right?
And dying out loud.
I know. I'm going to meet up with Dave Warnock down there May 1st, so I can meet you guys.
Oh, good. Dave's a good friend.
That's on my bucket list. We're going.
Okay, I went down there and spent a week with him. He's a great guy. So say hi to him for me. So think about this. Each of these people has to face their own mortality through you.
Right.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
They're looking at you and saying, wow.
Everybody's first reaction is sort of like, I don't know what I would do if this was me.
Yeah.
Like, that's how they react to me, you know?
Right.
So I know they're seeing that.
So in having your one-on-one conversation with them, if you can, and if you can do it within boundaries, I would first of all set some clear boundaries. We're not going to talk religion.
Yeah.
We're going to talk humans. And I want to tell you how much I love you, and I've enjoyed our lives together, and I wish I could continue for the 30 more years with you. I'm not. So let's make the best of this while I'm here. And one of the ways I want to do that, because you are in control of your life. And that's the most important thing. Don't let them push Jesus into your life. You've gotten rid of that. You're ready to move forward.
Yeah, no, there's no chance that can happen.
Well, that's
fine. I'm 100%. I just don't believe in anything supernatural. And ever since I became an atheist, I'm just not afraid.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid of death. I'm not afraid of things because, you know.
But they are.
To be afraid of.
They are. And you don't find too many people more afraid of death than Christians. They really are afraid of death.
You have.
Well, especially because I'm a sinner, too, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
And they're worried for my soul because they, in their minds, and I'd really want to, but it would probably be mean. But when they say, you know, they're worried about me going to hell, I want to ask them if they think I deserve to burn in hell forever.
Right.
Because they know me. And I've always been a really good person. And I've always, you know, helped them out and helped people out. You know, like, you really think that I deserve to burn forever because I don't believe the same way you do?
Yeah.
You know?
That line of argument probably doesn't.
It's a very uncomfortable question for them. They don't like it when I ask them that.
Yeah, and it depending on what their beliefs are, it may not carry a whole lot of weight because they think that everybody is deserving of this, so they don't think you're any worse than anybody else. This is just like the fact of the situation.
Right.
It's kind of like asking, you know, oh, do I deserve to have my house burned down? You know, let me just say, first of all, you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And the way you have an opportunity, and I don't mean to cheapen any of this. You have an opportunity.
I mean, that's what I'm wanting. You know what I'm saying? If I have an opportunity to help them, let's do it. You know.
I think that.
I just don't know how.
I think the big opportunity here is for you to live out the remainder of your life, showing them how someone can be in this position and not be afraid and still be a good person and still show that they care about other people and that you're not going to live your life in fear, and that who you are and your relationship with them is far more important to you. It's the thing that matters. It's the thing that we're going to cherish. They're going to miss you when you're gone, whether you turn to Jesus at the end or not. And so whatever time that you have left to engage with them, it should be about let's show each other our best selves. Let's have a breakdown at some point and cry about the time we did that stupid thing when we were little kids, because those are the parts of life that end up being the reward, not some potential afterlife. And so you have an opportunity to do this, but I want to add one thing, that when it starts getting bad, when you find that your spirits are shutting down, you know, you can't stay as positive as you thought. You don't owe anybody shit, and nobody should be coming in. And I think you've got it handled. I would not want to tussle with you.
So, if there's anything at all, I'm the one who's dying here, so fuck you. That's kind of my attitude, and I know it. You know, I mean.
I love you so much.
I love that.
That's all I have left. I don't have time to waste on your bullshit is kind of my attitude.
I can't wait till you're coming down in May, right?
I am. Are you going to do a magic show for me?
Yes. You can come over to the house and I will do a
want you to do magic for me. That would be awesome.
Mary, you come over to the house and I will do a special magic show in my living room just for you.
Oh, excited. I will be there. First weekend in May. Make sure you're going to be there for that.
All right.
I will do everything in my power.
I want to say I 172% agree with what Matt said. And I want to also say that, do you have an advocate close to you that can protect you or help you when? Because I've watched it many times. As you get more and more sick and less energy,
Yeah.
they start closing in, and you need
But
somebody
see,
to.
they can't because the people I live with aren't that way, and my extended family lives further away from me, so they don't see me that regularly.
Okay. Well, I just want to say
They can't. You know what I mean? So I do have all three of my kids, my stepson and my boyfriend would all 100% have my back.
Okay.
Good.
Well, let them know what
fact,
you
my
want
son
and tell them to
calls my
take care of you while
uncle.
you're doing that, so they can't close in on you. Good.
Yeah.
Good work. Good work.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to come down, and I just want to say thank you to the ACA, the Atheist Community of Austin, because the shows that I've watched, and also Anthony Magnabosco and Seth Andrews' podcasts and their stuff, has just. Otherwise, I think if I hadn't seen these things, if I hadn't become an atheist, I think that I would be terrified right now. I would just be terrified right now.
Right.
And I have no fear. My daughter the other day said, I'm worried about getting in a car accident. I said, I'm not anymore.
Well, you should still try to drive safe because there's other people that depend on that.
Right.
They
They won't even let me drive right now because I'm doing chemo, but I'm going to be good. I'm actually going to talk to my doctor tomorrow, and we're going to schedule it so that I'll be feeling good to come down there.
Good.
All right.
In May.
We're looking forward to it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, Mary.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
Take care. I hope that if anything like that ever happens to me, like if I get a diagnosis like that, I hope I handle it half as good as she and Dave have handled.
Blown away by that. Mary is amazing.
I really don't know. You don't know what you're going to do until you're in that situation. I'd love to think that I'd be just like her and Dave, and instead I might not be.
No.
You never know.
No, but we have these examples, and I didn't know these people before. I didn't know Dave before. I'd never heard of Mary before, of course, tonight. But it's good to have the examples out there because I think it helps me think about it.
All right, we'll try David in New Mexico. You're on with Dr. Darrel Ray and Matt Dillahunty. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me.
Good to have you.
Good. How about yourself?
Good.
We're doing all right. Getting good grades.
Awesome. But I just wanted to make an important point here. I know that's going to be a lot of skeptical people out there to believing into this stuff, but mainly what I want to talk about is just the paranormal. I know that's hard for some people to believe in this stuff, but let me just start off by saying that there's a spiritual warfare, and it's alive in this planet, and we're pretty much seeing the effects of it, by allowing sinful behavior into our culture. And
by allowing what?
Mind. There's a lot of sinful behavior that's being promoted.
Okay, so you're saying, so you wanted to talk about the paranormal, but you're saying there's a demonic warfare that's real because we're allowing sinful behavior?
Exactly. Let me just explain, okay? Just keep this in mind.
Well, hang on just a second.
There's,
When you say allowing sinful behavior, like, first of all, you'll probably already be aware that you and I are going to disagree on what should count as bad or negative behavior, and I reject the notion of sin. But are you like a Christian of some stripe?
Yeah, I'm a Christian, but I wasn't within the past.
But under the Christian, here's the thing: when you say allowing sinful behavior, isn't it God who's allowing sinful behavior? Isn't that the whole point?
Not really. I mean, we're the ones that are here on earth, not God. We're the ones that are responsible for our behavior, not God.
Right, but you're not responsible for. But you're not responsible. You're not responsible for somebody else's behavior. So if I do something that you think is sinful, whether you allow it or not is irrelevant. That's my freedom to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have a free choice.
Yeah, and isn't it God that set up a scenario under your model where I have that free choice?
Well, the thing is that, we've been influenced to believe that there's not actually a designer, and we couldn't everything in chance. This really causes a problem, because by choosing this, we put down our spiritual shields. Because I was involved in New Age for, past 10 years, and I was pretty much involved deeply with them. And I know this is hard to believe because some of you may have never experienced this stuff.
I'm not even understanding.
But,
I don't know if there's a problem with the audio, but, I mean, can you explain what you mean by allowing sinful behavior? Like, give me an example.
Yeah. I mean, let me just back up a little, Right now we're seeing in our whole society that, as many don't like to believe, Satanism, is being influenced everywhere.
I'm sorry. I apologize for interrupting. There's something muddy about the audio on your phone. And so if you can just speak just as a smidgen slower or try to be clear, I'm not quite grasping what you're saying.
Sure. Can you hear me well now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was just saying that since we're seeing this throughout the whole, society.
We're seeing what?
When I was deeply involved in the occultism, occultic practices, New Age practices.
So you were involved in occultic practices before, you said. Is that what you're saying? Okay, because we're having a little difficulty understanding this.
Okay, I don't know what this...
Yeah,
go ahead. Just go ahead.
I'm sorry, guys. It's just that I'm calling down from Mexico, so the signal is not as great down here. But I'm, trying my hardest to get this message through. But,
to make this easiest, tell me what you think is happening and what the problem is.
Well, like I was saying, the problem is pretty much starting with sin. I mean, I don't know if you believe in this stuff, but there's spirits working through, there's demonic influences.
No, I don't believe any of that.
Back in 2014, physicists from quantum physics claimed that they could prove that there is an afterlife. You can even look this up. There's actually a lot of paranormal activity going on in a lot of places, but we tend to ignore them. There's even mystical aspects and properties that we know of dark energy, as science is claiming today.
Let's stop here a minute.
Dark energy has nothing to do with the paranormal or supernatural.
Right.
Well, it does, man. If you go down deeper...
No, it actually doesn't. We're going to move on.
I did have one little question.
Oh, sorry
about that. I just wanted to know, who's the we? He kept saying we are letting sin in. I just wondered who the we
I tried to get to that earlier because, usually when somebody says something like that, it's like, oh, we've allowed for abortion is legal and I think abortion is sin. And by doing this, we're bringing God's wrath on us.
Right.
And that's what I was trying to get to earlier.
Yeah.
But if you're just going to call in and assert that there's all kinds of paranormal stuff that we're not paying attention and then try to use quantum physics and dark energy, we're moving on. Because that's not the way that works.
Yeah, the dark energy thing went off the edge. That was for sure.
It's like there's a number of things that within.
He doesn't know what dark energy is, and the scientists don't even know what dark energy is. So how are you going to tie that all together?
Yeah, there's a number of things where I wish we'd have named something different.
Yeah.
Because it's dark energy. That must mean it's evil.
Well, I'm pretty sure no matter what we named it, somebody would pick it up and misuse it. So there you go.
Possibly. We have Rami in Paris, France. You're on with Darrel and Matt.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Darrel. So I'm a theist, and I came to theism through the scientific method, and I'd like to share that with you. So I want to show you guys that it's possible, applying the scientific method, to get to the fact that the laws of the universe are prescriptive. So the thing is, prescriptiveness of the laws of physics, of the laws of the universe, yields testable predictions. So we can apply the scientific method. So we need to apply 5 steps, which are the following: observation, hypothesis, prediction, test, and we'll get to the conclusion that the laws of the universe are prescriptive. So we're going to start.
So you're going to say they're prescriptive and not descriptive?
Exactly, prescriptive, because the prescriptiveness of the laws of physics can yield testable prediction.
I don't know how
we can then apply.
How could you show that they're prescriptive? I mean, because that sets up a circular argument for the thing that you're trying to prove.
No, I'm going to show you that through the scientific method. So first the observation, and you will see that the observation yields naturally the hypothesis of prescriptiveness of the laws of physics.
Okay.
So we can, from Newton's law of gravitation, we can from there get to quantum mechanics in a way that seems prescriptive if we let the math talk to us. When I say
I don't care if it seems I don't care if it seems prescriptive. I care if it is prescriptive.
It's an observation. Yes, sure. It is an observation, and from there the hypothesis arises naturally, and also a prediction that is testable. You will see that. So from Newton's law of gravitation, if we let the math talk to us, I mean by that giving physical interpretation to mathematical information, we see that gravitation can be well described as what we call an acceleration field. And since an acceleration field has the same equation of movement, of inertial movement in a curved space-time, that means we can describe gravitation as a curved space-time, all right? And for that, we need a natural mathematical language to study, to analyze curved spacetimes. And such a language is called Riemannian geometry, also called tensor calculus. And in tensor calculus, there's only one tensor, not two tensors, nor three tensors, only one tensor that has exactly the same properties as the energy impulsion tensor, which is a mathematical object that encodes the way mass and energy is distributed throughout space-time. And since there's only one such tensor letting the math talk to us, we say both tensors are equal. When we do that, we get the famous Einstein's equation of general relativity. So when we keep going, we want then...
I don't want to keep going because math is already descriptive. The language of math is descriptive. It's not prescriptive.
I'm telling you that in the observation, we see that there's a prescription in the math, because from now... math is descriptive. The language of mathematics is used... Let me finish.
No, I'm not.
And you will get it.
Goodbye. I'm trying to understand what you're saying, and if we're not in agreement and you're just going to keep going, no, please let me finish, there's no point in you finishing if we've gotten to several serious points of disagreement. The language of mathematics is descriptive of the universe. It's not like math exists out there or a language of math exists out there. But maybe I am a dilettante Luddite, and so what you should do, Rami, is write a fucking paper and submit it to other mathematicians and see if you can get like a Nobel Prize for proving prescriptive laws of physics and a God, rather than calling in to a TV show where neither one of us are mathematicians or physicists. And when you say we can use math to describe, which is literally what you said, you seem to be conceding my point that it's descriptive and not prescriptive. So we'll move on.
Thank you. I was happy to move on beyond that too.
Yeah. So far we've had quantum physics, dark energy, Newton's laws, language of mathematics with tensors, and that leads to Einstein.
Yeah, I just want one paper submitted. I would like to see that happen, and maybe they should copy you on it.
God, no. So the debate that I did Friday night was, is there good evidence for God? And I jotted down an opening talking about what we mean, what counts as good evidence, and what counts as good evidence for a particular proposition. Right. And instead, what I got was a presuppositionalist line of argument about how there has to be some grounding for logic, and God is that grounding. Mm-hmm. First of all, that's not an argument for there's good evidence. It is just the presentation of an argument. Mm-hmm. But moreover, he started off, well, I'm doing a debate review tomorrow, so we'll worry about that tomorrow.
I remember seeing you debate that presuppositionist years ago down in Memphis. That was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah.
We have Alex in Roxville, Maryland. You're on with Matt and Darrel. How are you?
Hey, Matt, Darrel, good talking to you. Yes, I call myself a meta-theist because I know that whenever the word meta does something, it sounds deeper than it is.
Yes, it sure does. It's a deepity.
Yes, exactly. Anyway, I was a comparative religion major at Oberlin, and I studied various religions and so forth. And I believe I've come up with a commonality that unites most religions and possibly also most ideologies. Basically, when you strip away the... What?
I do too.
You what?
I have... So you have a model that you think unites most religions and ideologies. I do too. So you present yours and I'll present mine, and we'll talk about how we could tell which one of them is more likely correct.
Okay, very good. Basically, my idea is that when you strip away the cultural and historical bells and whistles from the various religions, you're left with what I call all will be well, the sort of a state of being in which all is well. It isn't a personality. It's more of a state of being like nirvana or satori, or the Gnostic pleroma is a state of being, sort of a divine state of being. And basically, my view is that most people, the vast majority of people, want this want all to be well. They have sort of a hope for it and a desire for it, and they have a faith for it, although I put an asterisk on the word faith. I don't mean faith in the way that you usually use it to mean belief in something without evidence, but more the idea of a faithfulness to something. For instance, you could say that you have a faith in world peace, that there will be world peace when you don't have any evidence for it, or you could say that you're faithful to the ideal of world peace, which means that you not only you'll believe it will happen, but you'll sort of work for it as well. It's sort of
the word for that would be devoted.
What?
The word for that would be devoted.
Well, if you look at the word faith or fidelity, you do have this idea of faithfulness as well. I mean, you can use it.
Fidelity, devotion, there's synonyms. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I realize that you use the term faith to mean belief in something without evidence. My usage of it is different. My usage of it is the idea of faithfulness to an ideal in which you're actually participating in making that ideal happen, and in effect providing your own evidence or providing evidence with the rest of the group that you're working to advance whatever form of all will be well is for you.
Okay. So this is not going to, you're not going to be happy.
Okay. What's yours?
So what is the response to that? See, first of all, I don't know why on earth you would start by removing cultural and societal factors, because my thing is that the one common thing that religions and ideology share is human beings living in a world and trying to come up with answers to things and explanations with things surrounded by their fears and their cultural and societal influences. And so it seems far more plausible that people make this stuff up, which seems to be kind of what you're saying, except that you think they make it up because they want everything to be well. Well, I don't care what their motivation is. I care whether or not it's actually true.
Well, it's true in the sense that it's based on consciousness in the same way that Sam Harris talks about consciousness.
No.
The idea that you want there to be, may I finish?
No.
The idea that you want there, I can't finish, huh?
When you say it's true in the sense, think about what you're saying. I'm asking whether or not the claims of religion are in fact true, and you're saying, well, it's true in the sense that it ties to consciousness. That's a load of shit. It's not true. That's like saying do unicorns actually exist? Well, they exist in the sense that people will draw pictures of them and have warm, fuzzy feelings about them, or make a stuffed unicorn that they can set on their bedpost. That's not the same thing. So you're giving an explanation for something, which may well be fine. You could be correct that people want things to be okay, but you might as well have just said, hey, religion is wishful thinking.
Exactly.
Okay, I have a response to that, which is that to say it is wishful thinking in a sense, but to say that it's wishful thinking is to compare tic-tac-toe to chess. It's more of I would say that to say that it's wishful thinking is dismissive in the sense that it's more of what I would call a longing which people have for as long as they can sustain that longing.
It should be dismissed. That's what you should do with wishful thinking. If we're going to engage in reality and try to make a better world, wish in one hand.
Hello?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to finish the actual thing, but it's like wish in one hand and shit in the other. Wishing is about our desire. It's not about what is. And if you really wish for a better world, then the path to that is one that actually encourages people to work towards a better world. Something like secular humanism, something where we're talking about how do we do things when it seems that we are stuck here trying to solve this. If you want to just... what is the point of saying that, well, there's a commonality in all religions, which is kind of a wishful thinking because people long for a better world? I'm back to my original response, which I'll amend to so fucking what? What does that tell us?
Well, what it tells us, when I mentioned consciousness, I meant that the idea is that we're trying for a world in which there's as little suffering as possible, to minimize suffering, to maximize whatever the goods and so forth. And basically, if you take, for instance, the beginning of Judaism, whatever it was, 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, basically you had all will be well personified as a patriarchal, warlike God, because that's what satisfied people at the time, and that's what satisfied, they weren't called Jews, they were called Hebrews at the time, whatever. But basically, it was an adaptive meme for them, so it worked. Whereas I'm basically saying that to call it wishful thinking is dismissive because it's something that I would say most people have, that we sustain as long as we can. Even suicides may think that they're improving their situation by committing suicide. So it's basically something which is a part of us, which wants all to be well, which wants to minimize suffering, and to sort of exclude us from the process, to say that there's a God which is separate from all of that, to say that we can't be active in the process. It's sort of like what Dietrich Bonhoeffer writes in his book about the price of, about cheap grace, this idea that you can just have faith without evidence or hope for something and not participate in it yourself. The evidence for the faith in all that will be well is provided by the people who adhere to it themselves, for whatever version of all will be well is, whether it's world peace or ending hunger or whatever.
Do you believe there's a God?
I believe there's a divine state called all will be well, and that
Oh my God.
as long as there's
Oh my God.
which can sustain it.
Okay, congratulations on your meta-theism. I'm sorry you're afraid to identify as an atheist.
That's kind of what it sounded like. We're one step away, but we don't want to get there.
I'm terrified. All these people, these billions upon billions of people who are advocating for gods that tie to the God of classical theism in some sense, or some other version of God, who believe there's an actual thinking agent entity that cares about, who you're having sex with, or, how many times a day you pray, or how clothed you are or not clothed you are. And you're gonna sit here and say, well, you know what? I don't actually believe in any of that, but there's something about the human condition, and it's just this wishing for things that all will be well. So I'm going to call that God. Fuck off. This is what religion does to the world. Religions permeate societies, the society and the culture that you want to toss out. I'm not even saying you're wrong. You're not even wrong. You haven't put forward anything that could even be viewed as being wrong. Religions permeate societies and cultures. Yes, they're all about us. They're about what our desires are and everything else. But at the end of the day, we're talking about whether or not the tenets of religion are in fact true, and whether or not there's a God tied to these things at the end of it. And so if you say, I'm a theist, you are someone who is convinced that there's a God. And if you say, I'm an atheist, you are someone who is not convinced that there's a God. But you've decided, I'm not good with that direct logical negation. I'm going to call myself a meta-theist because I'm going to redefine God to be that desire for all to be well. Well, congratulations. I hope you enjoy that. I'm sure it brings you a sense of superiority, but we're here to talk about real things.
I want to suggest something to that particular caller and callers who might be the similar ilk. You're close, but not quite there. And here's what I mean. You're spending a lot of energy on something that's not going to get you very far when you could be taking that energy and actually helping somebody. You could go down to the homeless shelter and take all that theist energy that you want to put on dark energy or whatever you want to do, mathematics, all these other colors, and you could actually help feed somebody. Or you could volunteer for recovery from religion and actually help somebody deal with the trauma they were given as a Jehovah's Witness. There's lots of things you could be doing to create meaning and forget that there even is a God. There's no need for the God if there's people out there that need fed.
Yeah. There needs to be a special section of the Recovering from Religion hotline for meta-theists. So that when you call in to say, well, I'm a meta-theist, and I think that I'm going to call God that desire that humans have for all to be well, somebody on the hotline who has slightly more patience than I do can say, why on earth should we call that God? How are you any different than the person who calls in and says, well, I think the universe is God, or the universal consciousness, the shared consciousness is God, or this can of Coke Zero is God, or sex is God. You know what? I'd rather just call in and say Eric Clapton is God, because at least that's closer to being true. Shannon in Nova Scotia, thanks for waiting. You're on with Matt and Darrel.
Hi, Matt and Darrel. How are you?
Good.
Doing well.
Good.
Good. I'm so excited. I'm drinking a Coke Zero, and I'm a little bit nervous about it now.
It's not God. And actually, somebody pointed out today that I drink enough of it that we should just start labeling this stuff the blood of Matt.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, it's nice. It's nice to talk to you both. I called in specifically to talk to Darrel. Not that I don't love you.
No, talk to Darrel.
Let me guess. Is this Shannon Q?
Yes.
Okay, I thought it was. There aren't too many Shannons in Nova Scotia that I know.
I wasn't going to actually do that, but
I took the risk.
during Faithless Forum, and so Mark, if you're listening, jot this down, because I hadn't talked to Mark yet, but during Faithless Forum, when Shannon's down here, she's doing AXP with me.
And before you even start, Shannon, I just want to, my hat is off to you, your videos on what you did an amazing job. That I recommend those videos all the time. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, that means the world to me. That's actually the reason why I'm calling. You being here is a unique opportunity for me to bring up the subject of a lot of my videos, which is people talk a lot about religious harm after deconversion, but there's a growing movement in an institution that's being built that it's called biblical counseling or Christian counseling.
I know.
And
horrible shit. Yeah.
It's really, really bad. There's an active movement to essentially usurp real mental health assistance.
Right.
And they replace it with what they call biblical counseling or Christian counseling. And they teach a very anti-psychology, psychiatry counseling model. In fact, they conflate all three together in order to build a straw man that they can beat to death so that they can convince their existing parishioners and existing Christians to instead turn to them for their counseling models. And they do things like encourage deconversion therapy, enforce biblical gender roles. They go around the medical models of things that are serious mental illnesses that would require medication. For example, psychopathy and any other sort of
they absolutely discourage evidence-based evaluation. They discourage all sorts of medical interventions. They discourage drugs. I mean, it's insidious. And your video talks about how that movement is making inroads and diverting people from getting real help into stuff that's actually going to make their depression worse, their suicidal ideation worse, their medical conditions worse. That's why I recommend your videos so much.
I appreciate that. That's not why I called.
Well, I know, but I want everybody listening to go watch those videos, because once you do it, it will actually just tie into what we're trying to say about religious trauma. Those people are actually creating more trauma than than they had to begin with by going to a religious counselor who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. I'm sorry. I interrupt you several times, but it's because I love you.
Thank you, caller, for your patience. What did you call in to talk to Darrel about?
They have a multitude of things that they do. So here there's two main organizations, the NCCA and the ACBC, and they actually have inroads in universities now. So there's like Christian universities in the States that are accredited institutions that are offering these courses in biblical counseling. And then they get accreditations through these agencies all the way up to a PhD level. And I wish you could see my air quotes. So because of the separation of church and state, there's nothing you can do to stop them, I guess. But how do you better combat them? How do you get this information out? Do you have any advice for me or people like me who spend a solid chunk of their life trying to get information out there, good information out there? And I'd like to thank you, because I link the Secular Therapy Project Recovering from Religion and the Clergy Project in every single video I post.
Oh, great.
Every one. So thank you for providing those resources that I can direct people to. But I guess aside from directing people to those resources, what advice do you have for talking to people who are currently Christians to deter them from turning to these pseudoscientific models that are actually going to make them worse in their mental health situation?
Well, first of all, if you find somebody, anybody, if you're going to a therapist and they are not licensed in your particular jurisdiction, then you shouldn't be going to them. That would be the first thing I'd say. Licensing is important because it means they've got at least the minimum credentials. Just because somebody's licensed, though, does not mean they won't bring their religion into the therapeutic relationship, which we abhor. We think it's horrible, but that happens anyway. If you are going to a licensed therapist and they do bring Jesus into the room without your permission, so to speak, then that's a basis to report them to the licensing authority in your state or your province. So that's the first thing I would say. Second thing is, Shannon, the people you're talking about are not licensed, and they cannot get licensed. They don't have the credentials for that licensing. But they can put a PhD from Liberty University up on their wall. That means absolutely nothing. I can get a $20. I have a real doctorate from Vanderbilt University, but I could also get a $20 doctorate from, bumfuck nowhere university.
Oh, they cost significantly more than that. They actually cost thousands of dollars.
Yeah, well,
like the diploma mills are actually a part of their business model. There's a significant business model. The diploma mills are part of it.
You're right. But I'm cheap, so I'll go to the $20 one.
It would be worth exactly as much. You might actually learn more with that one.
Exactly, it will. So you and I are on the same page about this. I'm concerned that these people are creating a really significant trauma. Not only that, but they are dealing with people that have sexual issues that could easily be helped with a good sex therapist. I'm also concerned that these religions. That I'm actually more concerned about therapists that are going to legitimate schools and with the purpose of getting out and bringing people back to Jesus, because they are getting licensed. And in some ways, we differ. You and I differ a little bit on that area. And to that area, we've actually brought on a new director, Dr. Travis. Just drew a blank on his name. Dr. Travis is our assistant director for the Secular Therapy Project for academic outreach, and we want to start challenging secular universities about licensing people, about not secular, but religious universities that have apparently secular. For example, you can go to Brigham Young University and get a PhD, and it's a legitimate PhD in psychology, and yet you still are having Mormon ideas about you shouldn't be masturbating. Those are the people I'm concerned about, because they have a license and they've got a hanging Brigham Young University diploma on their wall, and they're telling people you shouldn't be masturbating. Well, the American Counseling Association has ethical guidelines against that, and yet the American Counseling Association is not stopping those people and is not decertifying Brigham Young University. Why is Brigham Young producing these people, and why are we licensing those folks? I know our arguments sound similar, but can you hear the difference there?
I understand. So the issue is that these are like people that maybe are like looking at the biblical counseling models and saying, okay, I'm not going to go to that. I'm going to go to a legitimate counselor, but I'm going to choose one that shares my ideologies and shares my beliefs, would go to one of these counselors and essentially hit the same problem, only this person's license.
It absolutely is. In some ways, it's
in the field.
It's even crazy. It's even more insidious because they look legitimate. And according to their license standards, they are legitimate. But they're harming people. I mean, Pat Robertson University.
Where do we start, Darrel? There's so much to take on. There's absolute infiltration. They're either flat out attacking the fields of psychology, psychiatry, and counseling and saying that they're illegitimate, or they're infiltrating so that they can imbue those fields with their ideologies and have ready access to vulnerable and susceptible people.
And we have seen Liberty University has done that. Pat Robertson's Regents University has done that. Oral Roberts University has done that. A whole bunch of them. About 20 years ago, they made a conscious decision. We are going to just start programs in psychology, marriage and family counseling, social work, so that we can put people in the field who agree with our ideology. They did this intentionally, and that's what I'm so scared about. So I would say this: contact me after some other show, or after the show, or some other time, and let's talk more about this, because I think we've got some mutual beneficial resources we can work together on. And we want to make this, we want to let the consumer community out there, people who need help, know who to be careful about, who to not go to, and who's probably going to use evidence-based methods to help them. So that got us...
Figuring out how to communicate why is very difficult, too, because a lot of people are so indoctrinated that they've been told that the fields are evil, that the secular therapists are all evil and worldly, it's very, very difficult to like be able to softly tell them,
right,
this is doing you more damage. You just may not even realize it yet because you're in such a flurry over needing to be godly and adhere to these practices that are actually causing you harm, that it's difficult to see the forest for the trees.
We need to get on to another call. I think Matt's going to cut us off here in a minute.
Hang up on me. Hang up on me, Matt. I want to get hung up on the atheist experience.
Hey, Shannon. So we're looking forward to having you down here on AXP at some point. I'm going to play an audio clip for you that's on my little buzzboard here.
Oh, gosh.
No, you're done.
Bye. I would like it on record that Shannon asked me to do that because there's no way in hell I would have ever hung up on her like that without permission. But so before we get to a couple more calls here, as a reminder, there'll be dinner here shortly. And anybody who's atheist or atheist friendly is welcome to come down the building. But as we're all well aware, I am superior to God morally, and I would say intellectually and existentially, as I can be demonstrated to exist. People would pray to God and they just, God could say yes, no, or maybe. And I figured I can do at least as well. So people have been sending in postcards with their prayers on them. This is greetings from Skane. I don't know. I pray to Matt that I remain always rational and teachable. I'm not going to be able to grant that because someday you're going to die and then you will not be rational and teachable. I'm not going to grant you eternal life just so you can be rational and teachable. I'd like to consider possibly doing something like that, but and it's so sweet of you because you said, oh yeah, and peace on earth, goodwill towards men, and donuts. Oh, donuts too. Congratulations. As far as you know, you will always remain rational and teachable. I grant your wish. It's not like you can prove me wrong. This is from Munich. Dear Matt Dillahunty, I've been listening to the Atheist Experience for 2 years now, ever since I started dating my fundamentalist Christian boyfriend, myself being an atheist. How'd that happen? I'm so grateful to live in secular Germany where religion usually is not an issue at all. It's just not I should have read this. It's just not present in everyday life. So please answer my prayer to keep it that way and give me patience to deal with my boyfriend's evangelical family that I might be introduced to sometime this year if you ever come to visit Oktoberfest. I have a spare room. And yeah, so best regards. I think that I will grant this prayer and Germany will stay largely secular. Now, it's going to vacillate. You're going to see spikes of religion because people don't like the fact that I am in charge of everything. They want to rebel against that, and I want to continue to give them the freedom to rebel against that. So you may see a slight increase in religiosity from time to time, but the trend will always be towards more secular world. So prayer granted. Dear Matt, I pray for your American voters to be smarter than your state representatives. Yours faithfully, Daniel. Even God can't fix stupid. So there's not really that much that I care to do about that. I share your desire. If you contact me again next year, I will let you know whether or not I answered this prayer. Oh, boy. This is a view from Signal Hill at night, but painted. So it's actually not a view from Signal Hill at night. It's a painting of a view. So maybe this will be a kind of a one-step removed meta answer to prayer. Oh, great and wise Matt of the Dillahunty. Okay, prayer granted. I beseech you this day to guide the minds and hands of the psychiatrists and social workers who care for my child. Grant them your wisdom to remember the years of education, training, and experience they have had when deciding on the best course of medication and therapy. Put a hedge of protection around my child's spirit and soul so that when the demons of anxiety, depression, and gender dysphoria attack, they will not hurt themselves. Support us as their parents. Grant us your strength, courage, and hope in this time of heartbreak and uncertainty. I pray these things in your great magical name. Amen. Sure. That's exactly the sort of prayer that I'd like to answer, to encourage people to remember their training and to do what we can to help children not fall into anxiety, depression, gender dysphoria, and stuff like that. Because when we work together to do that, and you will have to do some of this legwork because Matt helps those who help themselves, we will build a better world. So there's I don't know why I put those in your book as if you're going to.
Oh, I thought that was hilarious. You were putting them in my book, Sex and God. There you go.
Yes. Answered prayers go in Darrel Ray's book, Sex and God, so that he can take them home and work on Sex and God Part 2, Answered Prayer, Electric Boogaloo.
With vibrator included.
I think I still have one of your vibrators.
Oh, yeah, I used to give I forgot about that, yeah. I used to give vibrators to people who came to my talks.
Yeah, little bitty bullets.
Yeah, a little bit bullet ones. And
yeah.
There was many a person came back and said they were very effective.
I'm sure.
A few said they didn't quite meet their needs, but that's okay.
There's one or two people who didn't know you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so while Sex and God was both being worked on and after it was published, pretty much every talk you gave at a convention was about sex in some way.
Yeah, I'll be talking about sex next week up in the University of Minnesota, so yeah.
And I love the fact that we have this great community of secularists and skeptics. And there were people who were, I remember they'd come up to me at convention and they're like, Who's this Darrel Ray guy? Why does he just keep talking about sex? and why is he handing out vibrators? Is he one of the guys we should look out for? And I'm like, no, he's one of the guys you should thank. Advocating for positive sexuality and enthusiastic consent, and by the way,
all the above. Yeah,
give yourself an orgasm or give somebody else one.
That's right.
If they want. Do you have a preferred caller that?
No, I don't care.
Oh,
you're gonna do a good job on them, whether I do or not. I'm quite sure of that.
Well, we got Tom in Vancouver. How are you? You're on with Matt and Darrel.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for responding to my call.
Sure.
I have a question, and it's a really specific Catholic question. It's about the image of Our Lady Guadalupe in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Is that the one where Juan Diego had like 4 visions or something?
Well, the claim is by the Catholic Church that Juan Diego saw the Virgin Mary, and then he takes off his cloth and he appears to a bishop, and then on his cloth is an image of the Virgin Mary. She appeared to him.
Yeah, okay.
And it's supposedly, the Catholic Church's view is that it's still there. It's the same image on the cloth that's been there almost 500 years.
There are also Catholics and even like an abbot at the church who dispute the claims. But my thing is, it doesn't matter whether I have an explanation for it or anybody else has an explanation for it. Until we can demonstrate that this is something that is real and happened, we don't really need an explanation. And until we come up with a demonstration that we have an explanation, whether that explanation is fraud or a god, until we have that demonstration, nobody should believe, that it was.
Yeah, I guess this is from a Catholic perspective. The argument, I guess, is that there's a connection between the actual image on this cloth and the teachings of the Catholic Church. I guess I'll do it quickly. For example, there's a petal above her womb on this image, and the Aztec would look at it and say, well, the God that she's praying to is in her womb, which would confirm that Jesus is in her womb and that he's God and that she's the mother of God. Things like that.
Yeah.
So there's kind of it's from the Catholic point of view, at least from the Catholic Church's perspective, it confirms Catholic teaching, and it actually, I'm not sure, I wasn't there in the 16th century, but supposedly it helped convert a lot of aspects of the Catholic faith, Juan Diego being one of them.
I'm sure stuff like that helps convert a lot of people, but I'm not Catholic, never was Catholic, and whether you want to talk to current atheist Matt or former Southern Baptist Matt, I don't buy it. I didn't buy it then.
But I guess the question I would ask is there, if it's not the claim that the Catholic Church is making, a supernatural explanation, there should be a natural explanation.
Yeah.
I mean, there should be a painter of some sort. Do you know who that? Are you aware of a natural explanation of why it's there?
No, that's the point. The fact that we don't know we don't have a natural explanation goes to the inability to examine it thoroughly, the inability to investigate properly. But not having a natural explanation doesn't mean that a supernatural one becomes viable.
But I guess from the little I know of this image, supposedly it has been studied scientifically. And I guess one is Phil Callahan, and he was a biophysicist from
It doesn't matter.
Florida. I'm not sure.
Tom, it doesn't matter. If every scientist looks at this thing forever and says, we don't know how it's done, that doesn't mean it's supernatural.
Right. No, but it does mean that the supernatural, how do I say this properly?
Would you use this? Let me ask.
Hang on,
would
he's
you
getting ready to
use-
say something really wrong. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, here, go for it. Go for it.
No. You're the one that's getting ready to say something really wrong. I wanted you to get to it.
Oh, okay. No, I'm just wondering if this image is supernatural.
How would you show that?
Well, the cloth itself supposedly is not supposed to last past 500 years. The image itself, the colors on it are not natural, and there's no evidence of a painting or a drawing.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
Yes, I've seen it in Mexico City, yes.
And how did you determine that the fabric isn't natural and the colors aren't natural?
Those are from scientific studies.
No, the scientific studies don't reach the conclusion that something is not natural. They'll either say we have an explanation or we don't. And if they don't have an explanation, then guess what? We don't have an explanation. We don't get to say, hey, science didn't have an explanation, therefore it's supernatural.
No, but it can eliminate factors like it's a painting or a picture. It can do that.
Sure. Okay. So if I ask, what's red plus 5, and we eliminate 7, 9, 13, and 65, that doesn't mean that the answer is Purple People Eater.
No, but I think though that there is a causal connection. It seems like between the image and the actual claim that Juan Diego saw the Virgin Mary, because there's an actual.
Of course, there's a connection. Guess what? Catholics like Catholic imagery and stories about Catholic imagery.
It's a tangible image, though.
So what? How did that tangible image come about? Do you know?
The only explanation I'm aware of.
No, I asked a question. Do you know how it came about?
That's the explanation is from the Catholic Church that it's a miracle.
Would you accept the same level of evidence that you're telling us about from a Hindu miracle or a Muslim miracle, the miracle of Fatima? Would you accept the evidence from any of the hundreds of miracles that have the same level of evidence?
Of course, but in this
you would
this
you would accept that level of evidence from a Hindu miracle?
Of course.
Then your standards of evidence are ridiculously and dangerously low because you're willing to believe things before there's sufficient evidence to warrant belief.
Wow. Yeah.
But the question is, then I guess the question I would have is, what would be sufficient evidence?
More than that.
Hell of a lot more than that.
Well, I guess. I mean, if God, let's assume Jesus is the same yesterday and today and forever, and he performed miracles in the first century.
I will assume that Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that is non-existent.
Right.
Well, it's a long discussion, but just the point I make is if it is a miracle, right?
How would you prove it?
Then, well, you could prove it by there's a tangible sign between her image being there and the actual claim that she appeared to St. Juan Diego.
No, that doesn't prove a miracle any more than Barney and Betty Hill claims they've been abducted by aliens, and you can say that their stories are similar.
See, I think there's a much more strong connection between the image and the actual story than what you see. I think we would disagree.
Well, we definitely do, because you're saying that it's reasonable to conclude that this is in fact a miracle, and when I ask how you can possibly demonstrate that, all we get is, well, the stories match, and scientists didn't have a natural explanation. That doesn't a miracle make.
But all right, so now we have to define what a miracle is then. If that image can't be explained by natural means.
No, stop, Tom, stop. This is where your error is. It's not that it can't, it's not that it, did you say it's my error?
No, I said, where's my error?
I'm telling you.
I didn't say your error.
what you said is it can't be explained. The fact that there isn't currently an explanation does not mean that it cannot be explained.
It just means that at the present moment, there's not an explanation.
Correct.
Right.
Just like when we didn't know what caused lightning, people jumped to the conclusion that it was Zeus hurling them. Is that true? Because we didn't have an explanation then?
The only thing I would say is a distinction between Zeus and the thunderbolt and this image is that there's more of a casual connection between this image and the story versus Zeus and the thunderbolt. I see a more stronger connection between the actual claim.
Okay, stop seeing strong connections in stories and start looking for strong connections in evidence.
Would you accept?
I guess
You wouldn't accept this same level of evidence in a murder trial, I'm guessing, or would you?
Well, it would depend on if there was a visible. If I saw somebody kill somebody, that would be a visible sign. Right?
I do not want you on my trial if I'm accused of a crime.
Why not? Because if I saw somebody kill somebody, that's reliable.
You didn't see somebody kill somebody. You didn't even. What you saw was a crime scene.
Okay, but the question becomes, if it's not supernatural, then there should be a painter or some sort of
No. This is the thing. This is the monumental arrogance of all fucking humans. You're like, well, if it's not supernatural, then there should be a painter and we should be able to identify it. Wrong. That's not how we determine whether or not something is supernatural. You don't just get to say, if it's not supernatural, then we would know what the natural explanation is. That is the flaw in your thinking. The fact that we don't know does not mean that it's supernatural. Supernatural needs to be demonstrated. You have to provide evidence for it, not just say, well, you can't prove me wrong. You haven't given me a better explanation, so I'm going to go with it. That's not how reason works.
Yeah, but I guess the difference of opinion is that I think that it's kind of like the Bertrand Russell thing where someone says he doesn't believe there was any evidence in front of God. But the fact is God gave him enough evidence. So how much evidence is enough evidence is, I guess, what I would ask you.
Yeah, more than you got. All right. Mike in Vermont, thanks for waiting. You're on with Matt and Darrel.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
What's up?
So I've been listening to some of the conversations here. You mentioned something about, because I want to defend the young Earth creation, or at least give it a shot. But you guys mentioned about the Mormons, saying that masturbation. They don't agree with that or whatever. Just on the side, I would say, what scripture says that in the Bible says that it's not okay to masturbate? Because there's nothing in the Bible about it. Just to put that one to rest.
There's something in the Bible that is frequently interpreted as being opposed to Mormon.
I know what you're going to say already. I already know what you're going to say. You're going to talk
oh my God, Mike! Mike,
go ahead.
There's something in the Bible that is.
How much time do we got? How much time do we got? Because I've been waiting on the phone for almost 2 hours.
I take. You want to know how much time you got left, Mike? None. There's a passage in the Bible that is frequently interpreted as being opposed to masturbation. I did not think it was opposed to masturbation when I was a Christian, and I still don't, because which is one of the reasons masturbation was referred to as onanism. It's the only thing in there because onan.
Well, he was accused of a serious crime, and that's not fucking his dead brother's wife.
Yes.
That was the crime.
His brother died, and he was required to impregnate her, and he would have sex with her and pull out and spill his seed on the ground.
Right.
The sin or crime that Onan did wasn't masturbation. Mm-hmm. It was not following through with his duty to God to impregnate his dead brother's wife. Right. But Mike was calling in to argue on behalf of a literal global flood and young Earth creationism. And, we didn't plug this thing in, so the battery's running low. And you know what? I'm sorry you called and waited 2 hours. Call next time. There are things that I'm not going to try and do in 5 minutes. And one of them is somebody claiming that water once flooded the entire earth over the top of all mountains. Just not happening. You are not only in a minority, you're even in a minority among young earth creationists, because even among some of the young earthers, they're fine with it being allegory. But if you want to call in and make the case for that, find a science show. find a science show where you can dig in and talk about that. But if you're going to be, I've waited on hold for 2 hours, then that just means that you think you're more important than everybody else we talk to. And quite frankly, between the fact that we talked to Mary, who's dying, and Shannon Q, who's a friend of ours, and a number of other people who had good conversations, even if we didn't ultimately come to some kind of agreement, means that you're an arrogant little shit I don't want to waste any more time on today. So David in Shreveport, thanks for waiting. Whether you waited 2 hours or 2 minutes, you're on with Matt and Darrel, and you get to be the last caller of the live portion of the show.
Shalom. Thanks for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Dr. Darrel,
yes.
I appreciate your presence here. And Brother Matt, Dillahunty, I appreciate your opposer position, because that's exactly what we need. We need someone to question the foolishness.
Cool.
Okay. So for the doctor, I have developed an evidence-based method. I call it the science of fiction dialectic. It's published. I published in September 2017, and it's in response to the trauma of religion. I grew up Muslim. Today, I would consider myself a Muslim. Not that complicated, but it is. I'm an American, and double entendre is what we're after. When we can find the double entendre in the Bible, that's going to open up a whole nother window of opportunity to discern what the scriptures are telling us.
Well, hold on a second. You started off with evidence-based something or other, and you published it in 2017, and then you jumped to the Bible, but you said you were a Muslim, and now you're... okay.
If we can name it, then we can work with it.
Okay.
So
did you publish
the science?
What is this publication you're referring to? Is it
it's
psychological?
The Science of Fiction Dialectics.
The Science of Fiction. And what are we going to use this book for? What does it do for us?
To understand history, more recent history. Let's say the last 180 years. So we're just diving just back into the 1800s.
Okay. And so it's not a psychological book.
It is a psychological book.
Okay, you said it was evidence-based. Where's the evidence? Yeah. Where did you get the evidence?
Well, here and I want to present this. License. You spoke about license earlier in the show. Mr. Dillahunty, the 10 virtues and vices of Aristotle. One of them is licentiousness. Now, if we use semantics, then we can connect licentiousness with a license. So I will not be baptized by an ordained minister because they have a license. That's just my preference, because they are ordained via license. And so if we understand that all commerce is sexual, just as a hypothesis, all commerce is sexual, then we come to the license situation. And then if we look back to maybe Trading with the Enemies Act 1918, licenses were the concern of the federal government. But we go back to Aristotle, the 381 BC, and he has the 10 virtues and vices, one of them being licentiousness.
Yeah, but that's sexual promiscuity.
Yes, but you have to use double entendre.
Why?
The full.
He was writing in. He was writing in Greek.
As soon as you start talking about double entendre, what you're advocating is that there's a secret hidden message we're looking for, and you can't read something at face value. You have to find the secret hidden message.
The science of fiction dialectic, exactly.
Right, and you're doing it all in English. Remember, he was writing in Greek. And it was ancient Greek.
I have done translations of Greek, because there's a few levels of Greek. You have Coptic Greek, you have
Cone Greek,
Attica Greek.
We're quite aware of that.
I'm trying to figure out what we're getting to because I'm pretty much lost.
Okay. What this is a method of understanding the world that we live in. Maybe we're being talked to in code.
How would you determine that we are, and why? So, like, if I'm trying to understand the world that I live in, I investigate methods and use those methods to make decisions about what's going on. In what part of my life would I suspect that I'm being talked to in a code?
Oh, scriptures.
I don't give a shit about scriptures.
Well, it's English. However, when you look back, you have Greek in the New Testament.
I understand that. I've studied it.
There are considerations there, too.
Yeah. The notion is, here are a bunch of religious texts, and they, on a plain reading, say some good things and say some bad things. You're suggesting that there's some coded hidden message in there. How would we ever know that?
Absolutely.
Well, okay, so first of all, I have no reason to suspect that's the case. And second of all, there have been many people who've tried to find coded message, everything from equidistant letter sequence codes, the Bible code and stuff like that. How would we ever tell, like, for example, let's say you think you found what the real code is within the Bible or the Quran or whatever else? How can we show that yours is correct?
We show that it's correct. Grek English, because there was an output from this, because we come to these logical conclusions. So I say Grek English, sort of like Spanglish, except we're throwing in Greek words. And the Greek words do slide into the English dialectic easily.
Yeah, the problem here is that
you have to have a reason to do it.
The problem here is that we are pattern recognition machines. And like everybody else who, all these other people who found Bible codes, do you think they found the right Bible code?
No, because they don't know good art.
Yeah. So they have all these methods, and they come up with the Bible code, and then their confirmation bias of finding a message and finding things that they view as evidence to support that message is what convinces them that their code's correct. How do you show that you're not doing the same thing?
Well, to show that I'm not doing the same thing, what I'd like to do is give you something that you have already been looking at and may be able to look at differently from this moment and forever.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to throw the word art. Okay, so art. In the Greek language, it's probably arte. I don't speak Greek fluently, but it's A-R-T-E. So art is bread. Okay, and then that's the Greek. So if we're looking at I like art. So do you like bread? Now let's go back to the Jewish consideration where you have two words, lehem and lihem. And so lihem is the word for warfare, and then lehem is the word for bread. The concept is war in the mind. Just means contemplating something. And that concept deals with bread. So art and war are bread.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, man. Talk to you later. It's 6:04.
That was interesting.
We've run a little over, but I'm also told there's salmon or flank steak over rice pilaf with salad for dinner. Let's do one more and then save one. Alex in Australia, thanks for waiting. You're on with Darrel and Matt.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I just want to talk to you guys. I've got some exciting news. I actually became a dad over the weekend, and that's kind of one of the things I want to talk to you guys about.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's exciting times.
It is very exciting, and you won't get much sleep for the next 6 months.
I'll give you plenty of time to argue with antinatalists.
Yeah.
What do you got for us?
So I'm sure there's plenty of them. Well, basically, last few years I've kind of really just been questioning my faith and trying to look at it from a really objective perspective, really stepping back from it. And it's kind of just been this really personal journey that I've gone on. I've always treated my faith as a personal journey, but it's no longer a personal journey because I've got this family that I have to teach, or I have to teach them something.
Right.
And I'm kind of just stuck, I guess. My family lives overseas, and they're very religious, and it's something I've always kept from them. Never really talked to them about it, but it's kind of gonna have to come up now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always just lied to them about it, and I'm not taking your ideas of just keep the peace, just let it go for now. But I don't know if I can do that anymore. I'm just wondering, do you have any ideas about it, or?
I can actually give you a bit of advice and a bit of help. I'm a grandpa and a father, but that's probably not my highest qualification. Well, it is a high qualification. I'll just warn you, no matter what you do, the religious people see your child as their next convert. And you're going to get all sorts, as their child grows up, you're going to get all sorts of pressure to take your child to their church or various different churches. Everybody's going to want, because they see their next victim in your child. Be careful about that. And it'll be in-laws. It'll be especially in-laws. In-laws that can be the worst. But I don't know anything about you. Don't know anything about your in-laws. You may have the best in-laws. Just be careful about it. But what I would also say is go to recoverfromreligion.org and look at our resources on parenting. We've got a lot of stuff. I would also recommend the book
Parenting Beyond Belief.
Exactly. Is what my next words were out of my mouth. Yep. Parenting Beyond Belief by Dale McGowan. It's a good book. Main thing is it's your child. And if you're going to raise a child secular, and maybe your wife or your partner is also religious.
Secular as well.
Okay, she's secular as well. Okay, that makes a lot of difference. Then you guys are in control. You can be sure and set boundaries. And here's the deal. You are the parents. You set the boundaries. And the boundaries are, our child will not ever be subjected to religious indoctrination. You will never take them to church. You will never take them to Sunday school or whatever. You set the boundaries.
Yes.
Or we're going to start taking our kid to church every Sunday, but it's going to be a different church every Sunday. And that will include Buddhists and Mormons and Muslims. You can do that too. I don't care which you do.
Mm-hmm.
But
It sounds cruel, and I don't necessarily always recommend it. You have the best leverage possible.
You do.
Would you like to spend time with your grandchild? Then you have to do it according to whatever rules we have. Yeah.
Especially since I live on the other side of the world from them.
Right.
Hopefully it doesn't ever get to that.
Right.
I mean,
And
mostly people get it.
Religionists do that.
Are,
religionists do that to us all the time. I mean, my daughter's religious, and I know the rules are I can't talk to my grandkids about atheism. That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they do it to us. We have the right to do it for ourselves, too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fair. It would. I think it'd be a lot easier, but my grandparents are in their 90s, kind of on the last ropes, and I just feel like it'd be a big kind of, not slap in the face, but it'd be a big kind of emotional pain for them to find out, to see what's happening. And
I will tell you this. I think that's a reasonable consideration. Yeah. When my mother was within a year of dying, and we knew she was probably going to. Was just the year I published The God Virus. I went to my brother and said, what do you think? Should I tell Mom I'm doing this? She said, no, don't do it to her now. So I didn't. She went to her grave not knowing that I was publishing this book. She knew I was an atheist, but she didn't. And it was a reasonable idea on his part. I'm glad he advised me that way. So, yeah, your grandparents don't need to be, but everybody else, grandparents or whoever your elderly, 90 years old, they're not going to change, and you don't need to put that stress on them. I agree.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
But they're talking about baptizing it and everything, and I feel like I can't really keep it from them. I can't really keep them down low while they're still around. Well,
you can delay them. You can give all sorts of excuses. I don't know. I mean, if push comes to shove, yeah, you can tell them. They are the ones making the decision to push you. And if they push you far enough, you'll say, look, I got some bad news for you. I didn't want to give it to you, but here it is.
Yeah.
That's your choice. You love them. You can reaffirm your love for them. And their religious ideas have nothing to do and don't impact your love for them. And you've been very loving in trying to protect them from this. But it's not your problem. It's really theirs, ultimately.
A lot of people go way out of their way to make sure, I don't want to cause a fuss. I don't want to make it a big deal. I get it. You're religious. I'm not. I'm not going to try and, shove it in your face and all this stuff. And it really represents the truth about what people care about. Mm-hmm. Because those of us who care more about the relationship than the fact that we disagree on something are going to be the ones who are going to be like, hey, let's not. And occasionally I've been at a family gathering and somebody will want to have a discussion about it, and I've bowed out. On other occasions, I have not. Those occasions have gone very well for me, not so well for the people who wanted to have the conversation. And I did that specifically so that they would stop asking for some of those conversations. But We wish you luck and congratulations. And yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Love your kid, raise them, teach them how to think.
Not what to think.
Yeah.
Teach them how to think, not what to think.
Yeah, I really like that line.
Yep.
Good.
Anyway,
thanks for calling.
So much.
Appreciate it. On that note, we're going to actually put a bow on the thing. I've got one more call, but we'll get to after the show's actually. Oh, well, all right, we'll do it.
Okay.
See, the problem is my tablet just died because it wasn't plugged in. So I have no idea who's on the call or what their call is about. Right. So welcome to the show. We're almost done. Hi, who are you and why are you calling us?
My name is David.
Hey, David.
I'm from Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, David, yeah, you had a disproof of God.
Yes. It's actually very simple. It's 0 equals 0. Non-existence does not exist. So therefore, there must be an infinite timeline. But I take it a little bit further than that because I have an argument with the Big Bang premise.
Mm-hmm.
I think that matter is in a state of collapse. I think protons are getting smaller as well as closer together over time. And that because we discount that from our measurements, since everything we use to make measurements is made of matter, it's like trying to use a ruler to measure itself. It doesn't really work very well. So when we look at space, we view space as expanding, but that's because we ourselves are what is shrinking.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Is there a peer-reviewed paper you've submitted for this? I just wonder.
No.
It's just your conjecture.
I've been writing about it for a while, and I have a few different.
Have you gone to the Large Hadron Collider and looked at the latest stuff there? Are you a physicist?
No, I've not been to the Large Hadron Collider, but I do understand some of what they do there.
Yeah, I don't have my resident. I don't have my resident
research and antimatter and all kinds of interesting things, but they have not had one shred of luck at detecting dark matter or dark energy. My supposition is because that those two things don't exist, because they're an error in the mathematics from the miscalculation of gravity.
So it sounds like you've got a Nobel Prize winning idea here. Would you let us know when you've got the paper ready for submission?
Or not?
Yeah.
Well, I have some things already written down that I could send in to you if you would like.
Don't send them to me.
I would love to do that.
Send them to
I'm
Physics
really
Today.
Not sure who to send them to. Physics Today. That sounds like a good place to send it to.
I don't know.
I will look that up as soon as I'm off the phone here with you.
My friends who are physicists, I wouldn't give them. I wouldn't give you their name or contact information just because it's just you can submit it to whatever journal. But I do have a problem though, even with your disproof of God, because 0 equals 0, and then there's an equivocation fallacy as soon as you switch from 0 in a mathematical sense to
zero
nothing.
as a mathematical sense represents nothing.
Well, you don't get to do a represents. You don't get to do a represents. That's an equivocation fallacy.
Well, I think that the way we use mathematics is to represent objects in the real world.
Okay.
So 0 has to have some form of connective value.
No, 0 doesn't map to anything in the real world. 0 doesn't map to anything in the real world. It's an abstraction.
That's what non-existence is. Non-existence doesn't map to
right, but you're saying the two.
It's an abstraction.
Okay, you're saying, holy crap. Bye. You're saying the two things are equal, and I'm saying that's an equivocation fallacy. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying if you're going to make a logical argument, and the logical argument begins with a premise that is math, you don't get to just say, and 0 equals nothing, because that is a potential equivocation. Why not just start with nothing? Why did you start with 0 equals 0? You should start with nothing equals nothing. Plus infinity isn't a quantity. Meanwhile, whatever, I don't know what's going on with protons or whether they're shrinking or anything else. And I don't know what God you actually disprove because we didn't find God to begin with. So go find a physicist, write a paper. Today, we're done. Thank you, Darrel.
Well, could I put one more plug in for our conference?
Of course.
I want people to go look at CORT 2020, CORT 2020, Conference on Religious Trauma. And even if you can't come, at least look at some of the research, some of the materials that are being put out there, and start thinking about what religious trauma means and
And also, there's a speaker list up there.
Yeah,
and so if you can't come to the conference, you can look up some of those speakers and see what work they've done and find that stuff.
Dr. Marlene Winnell's book, Leaving the Fold, excellent book for this very topic.
So the people on the other side of that wall, there's our crew who make this show happen. We are going to go live on Discord as people set up tables and chairs out there for the dinner that's there. And one extra special message just out of the blue, and then we'll roll the credits, and that's this. I'm your daddy, worship me.
What are we doing, man? What are we doing?
No, you're done.